Welcome to More Precious Than Rubies, where we explore and celebrate the stories of women in our modern world. I'm Ariana, and this season I'm meeting incredible local women in their space and learning what they've built, while they quite literally walk me through it. Today I'm in North Park at Bivouac Ciderworks with Lara Worm, co-founder, CEO, and self-described adventure guide. Bivouac is an outdoor-inspired tap room, restaurant, cider works, adventure lodge, and general store known for its handcrafted hard ciders, San Diego comfort food, and adventurous West Coast spirit. Their ciders are made right here in North Park. Lara's path has been everything but traditional. She grew up around food and beverage world in San Diego, spent part of her career as a homicide prosecutor in Washington, D.C., and eventually found her way back to hospitality, bringing together her love for travel, the outdoors, food and drink, feminism, and community impact. Today, we're going to walk through Bivouac, learn what makes craft cider unique, and talk about what it looks like to build a business that invites people to live boldly. So let's go meet Lara. Lara, thank you so much for having me in your beautiful speakeasy this evening. I'm so excited to be here and get to know you a little bit more.
Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you being interested.
Can you introduce kind of your business a little bit for the viewer? For those of you who are new to it like I am, I was unfamiliar what bivouac means. So can you define bivouac and why you felt like that was the right foundation for this brand?
First question everybody asks is, how do you pronounce it? And it's bivouac. And the second question everybody asks is, what does it mean? So the word bivouac means temporary camp. And it's a word used by mountaineers, rock climbers, campers, and also in the military. And it basically means like going out camping without a tent. So when we were designing this brand, we knew that we wanted to be an outdoor action adventure lifestyle brand. We are born in San Diego and basically rooted in adventure. And we really wanted a name for the company that was representative of the wanderlust and the spirit of adventure. And so Bivouac is just the perfect name because it invokes outdoors, it invokes nature, it invokes adventure and travel and impermanence and kind of the spirit of cider and, of course, the lifestyle here in San Diego.
And a little bit of a challenge because if you're going to go camping with no tent, that's a sense of adventure for you if I've never heard of one.
Absolutely true. There's everybody in the Army, it's a really an Army term, and everybody in the Army goes like, I know the word bivouac. I was calling all these people that I knew would know the word bivouac and asking them if they had any memories or like what it brought up for them. And my dad said when he was in high school, he and a friend, he grew up in San Diego and they were big campers and hikers, and they went out and did this big, huge hike here in San Diego, and they didn't take any gear with them. And they went and they set up like to go to sleep on like a little bit of a hill, and they just had sleeping bags but no tent or anything. So him and his buddy like set up, they went to sleep, and then I guess in the middle of the night they slid all the way down, and they woke up in the morning in a patch of poison oak.
Oh no.
And his buddy ended up having to go to the hospital because he was like covered in poison oak. So I'm like, Dad, what do you think of when you think of bivouac? And that's the story he told me. So
But interesting there that you noted, I mean, the sense of adventure, right? I think because when comfort lacks, you find more memories in that sense. And so I think what a fun way to have it. And, you know, it's so obvious to see as soon as you go to Bivouac's Instagram page of like, we're at the beach, we're in the mountains. And that is what cider is to me. I mean, you'll explain a little bit later what the difference for you kind of between beer and wine and cider is. But it's just so obvious to see that you are full of adventure here at Bivouac. So thank you for defining it. I'm sure that's going to be helpful to a lot of people. It was helpful to me for sure.
Yeah.
So talking a little bit about your path, you've had quite the journey from when you probably graduated college, maybe even before that. But from growing up around food and beverage to working as a homicide prosecutor, I would love to hear a little bit more about that, to now building Bivouac. How did those different chapters shape the kind of leader and business that you have today and hope to have in the future as well?
Just a quick, like my life history, very briefly. So I'm born and raised in San Diego, and my family has been in the hospitality industry in San Diego for about 70 years. My grandpa was a chef. My dad is a chef. My brother's a chef. My family now, they had restaurants growing up, and then now they own a big catering company in San Diego.
Whoa.
So we are, I have hospitality in my blood for many generations. And growing up, I always say my parents believed very strongly in child labor. So they put me to work at a very young age. So I was like a hostess in the restaurant when I was 4 years old. Whoa. And I was washing dishes when I was 10, and I was, waitressing when I was 12, and really every single job in the whole hospitality industry. And I always say that what it taught me was that I did not want to be in San Diego. I did not want to be in the hospitality industry, and I did not want to be in business with my family. Okay. So the moral of the story is free will is an illusion, and you can make lots of life plans, but somehow the universe has a plan for you. Yeah. I went to college at Long Beach State, and then I went to law school in Washington, D.C. And honestly, since I was about 5 years old, I was saying I wanted to be a lawyer. And when I was in third grade, I recently found a journal, and it said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, a criminal prosecutor. So I was focused mission. I really knew myself. I really knew what I wanted to do.
Amazing.
And so I went to law school in DC. I clerked for a year, and then I got my dream job at the United States Attorney's Office in DC. And I kind of worked my way up through the office there, and then I had a senior position as a homicide prosecutor in DC. So it was the dream job. It's a dream job for really any lawyer, but it was my dream job since I was, a child. And it was really amazing. And it's funny because as a lawyer, but most notably, as a trial lawyer and as a homicide prosecutor, very fast moving. You're dealing with a very wide variety of people, stressful, environments. You got to think on your feet. There's just a whole bunch of skills that career calls upon. And honestly, the thing that trained me the best for it was growing up in restaurants. Huh. And my mom and I always used to talk when I was preparing for a trial, and she would say it's just like me preparing for a catering event. And honestly, there's so many similarities about the prep that you have to do and the crazy things that can happen, and the all the different people that you're dealing with. So I always laughed and said, the thing that prepared me most for trial litigation was working in restaurants. Now that I am back in the restaurant and the hospitality industry, and I'm running this company, so many things are crazy and, dynamic and changing every day, and crises happen and whatever. And I think the thing that most trained me for this was homicide prosecution. Sure. So I was kind of say my life story is called From Wiretaps to Cider Taps. That's awesome. And it's a little bit of an unlikely path, but when you really dive in, the things that you need to prepare for are quite similar in either one. So you would never expect it, and it sounds like a completely insane path. And it is, but definitely I draw from my experience for both things.
I've been asking a lot of female business owners, it's either really difficult for females to plan 5 or 10 years ahead, or it's really easy for them. So I always think is this something where you can see Bivouac reaching a certain point or a goal in 5 to 10 years? And how has your previous experience shape how you're going to get there?
That is a complex question.
Yeah, it is.
And actually, on my very first interview for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C., the interviewer said, "What's your 20-year plan?"
Oh, gosh.
It was okay, what a crazy question, right? So definitely I'm a person that engages in long-term planning. That said, this Bivouac and, cider was not something I ever thought that I would get into. And I'm kind of an accidental entrepreneur. So I think I can also say that you can make the best plans in the world and believe that you'll be on one particular path and that you made these plans, and lots of different things that, can happen along the way. And so, I definitely do think about long-term planning and where I want the company to go and where I want my life to go. But I'm also pretty open to the fact that the universe is going to throw curveballs and that any number of things can happen. And especially in this industry, it is so rapidly changing. And there's just things that are bigger than you and out of your control. And as a small business, you're sort of at the mercy of a lot of big businesses or customers or whatever. So I'm sort of accepting of the fact that like, no matter how good my plans are for the next 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 years, it might look completely different.
Sure, but what a beautiful journey that you've been on, and so impressive that you were able to mark that spot in your life just as a toddler of where you want to be someday in your life. And after you achieve that, you were able to say, all right, what's my next challenge and adventure, just like Bivouac is trying to encourage other people to do. So
That's
what
right.
a beautiful path that you've been on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually our motto for the company, and it's on all of our cans and everything, is embrace your adventure. And when we came up with that motto, that's exactly how I described it. It doesn't necessarily mean hiking to Mount Everest. It can mean that, and for some people it is, or extreme sports, or, you know, any of these crazy things. It can be that, but it honestly doesn't have to be. It's like your adventure. And so if you are an entrepreneur and you have created a business and you're on this path, it is a crazy adventure, and you kind of have to embrace all that comes. Or, you know, my sister moved to Oregon and was like living on a commune and had, you know, built a farm, and that was an adventure that she was on. And I think that you know, something that we really highlight is like trying to champion adventurous people doing impressive things, but maybe like normal people who are taking those adventures, right? Because you don't have to just be an Olympic athlete in order to have your adventure. Like every single thing you decide in life, every career path that you take, every mountain that you hike, you know, any of these things are your own adventure. And if my life is any indication of like how much you can't plan what is going to happen, if you truly embrace your adventure and just realize like, things are going to happen, and you're going to pivot, and you're going to take a different path, and sometimes you're going to wander off the beaten path, and it's kind of all part of the life experience, and that like it might feel uncomfortable at the time, but at the end you're going to look back and go like, oh, I'm glad I did that because that was crazy, or that, you know, lent to my personal story, or
that's what makes life beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah, what a great adventure that you've been on, and I'm excited to kind of continue that hike down the road a little bit more. So to go back a little bit and talk more, a little bit deeper into Bivouac. So it's so much more than a cider brand. From what people will see in some B-roll that I'll show, you have a tap room, you have a restaurant, you have a neighborhood bar, you have a cafe, you have this beautiful speakeasy, and honestly, each of them are so unique. So how do you think about creating an experience rather than just selling a product?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for recognizing that. I really do appreciate it. And, you know, I think when people walk into any of our spaces, they can tell that there is something special and something unique about the space. But I always tell my staff when I do my customer service training that I want them to think of the best vacation they ever took, and think about a tour guide on that vacation. And the best tour guides know the history of every rock. They know where to buy the best souvenir and where to get the best taco, you know, off the beaten path. And they know the history of every building that you come to. And when you leave a place where you had a tour guide, you really have like a connection to that space. And it's so much different than if you just like went and took a self-guided tour or something. And so like what I really want people to feel when they come into Bivouac is a connection to the space, and to like learn a little bit more about it, because once you dive in below the surface, there's just a lot to it. So we opened about 8 years ago. And we opened our original location right in the heart of North Park, and it's a tap room and restaurant. And so the food, I call it San Diego comfort food. It's just kind of like upscale pub food, but it pairs pretty well with cider. And when we opened, you know, cider's pretty new in Southern California. Cider is actually the original American drink. That's like what people were drinking at the start of the country. Johnny Appleseed was planting cider apple trees. And so it really has deep historical roots in America. But after Prohibition, the national drink sort of turned to beer, and people don't know as much about cider. So in the Pacific Northwest, in New York and Virginia, and places where they grow apples, they have a cider culture. In Southern California, we don't have as many apples. And so people like don't even know about cider. There's some people that walk in here and they go like, what is it made of? They really don't know anything about it. Yeah. And it's got a robust history and culture in Europe and, all around the world that there's an apple culture. So we knew that a large part of our focus was going to be education and kind of inviting people in, having them eat and drink and really creating community and being a community space where then we could teach them about cider. Our original space is built out and designed like kind of an adventurer's cave. It's all climbing rope and there's a brass inlay on the bar that's a topography map of Black's Beach and Torrey Pines. And there's kind of stars on the wall and it's the actual star map. So there's a lot of really thoughtful details that went into the design over there. We got pretty popular. We got picked up by a distributor right away. Nice. And we expanded throughout the years into Orange County, Los Angeles, like throughout Southern California, and then all of Arizona. And the space that we're sitting in now, again, right here in the heart of North Park, we're directly next to our original space. And this was 2 little tiny dance studios. But of course, we're in the heart of North Park and it's pretty expensive for rent. Sure. And we really needed more manufacturing capabilities. Okay. And so I just kept coming back to the space thinking like, this is really the right space. Like I know it. I felt it in my heart. Like this is where we need to be. And I was like, what if I could build a front of house concept that would mitigate the rent, that would double down in the community. Like North Park is kind of where we, were born and raised. Like their community is so supportive. They were really amazing to us during COVID. Like North Park is like our heart and soul. And so I thought it'd be really cool to like stay here in the community and really expand. And at Bivouac next door, I was having all these community-based events, like especially outdoor organizations like REI and San Diego Canyonlands and Mesa Rim Climbing Gym, and like all these different outdoor organizations, and they were all happen to be run by women. And
didn't know that. That's awesome.
It was just random, like right there, whatever organizations were planning a thing, it just happened to be a woman that was running it. So I'm sitting there like watching these organizations and the meetups and whatever type of events they were doing. And I heard them saying like similar things, like about community, about the outdoors, whatever. And I thought, man, all these people need to meet each other. Like they should really be in one place. And I was like, man, we really need like a clubhouse. And I was like, we need like a outdoor women's mafia clubhouse, And I was just like, I just remember thinking that, right? And I'm like, where can I have this like, outdoor women clubhouse? And then these spaces were available. I thought, man, what if I can build this like really cool community space, almost like a community center, like the old school community center, and teach people about cider, cultivate that community, have that third place where people can really connect, and build a production facility in the back. So I got a production facility right next to my original production facility, while kind of doing this thing in the front. And I pitched this concept to like a whole bunch of people. And it's kind of a crazy concept. Like I have a coffee shop and all-day cafe, an outdoor action adventure gift store, a cider tasting bar, an event space, a speakeasy, a production facility. Like it's crazy, right? And so as I'm like telling people about this, a lot of them were like, this sounds chaotic, like how are all these concepts going to fit together?
It's like a choose your own adventure.
1,000%.
That's like literally what it is.
That is it. I have that like from my early days of like brainstorming about this thing. It is literally like choose your own adventure. Yeah. Like we have a really diverse audience, clientele, customer base. Like I always say like our customers are so broad. They share nothing except for a love of the outdoors and fine food and beverage, right? And so there are like a wide variety of ages, backgrounds, men and women, all different races, all different neighborhoods, tourists, locals, like dogs and dogs, cats.
Your really lovely dog is off camera. Well, I will definitely get a video.
We're gonna have some B-roll.
Yeah, we're gonna have B-roll of Cooper for sure.
Well, Cooper also works here, so if you come visit us, like he's usually the host. He will seat you at your table. But yeah, that's I literally wanted it to be a place where like every single person is welcome And no matter what you're doing in the like evolution of your day, you will find a place here. So, we open at 9 o'clock in the morning during the week, 10 a.m. on the weekends, but people come and co-work. And like literally some people come here every single day.
That's awesome.
They have meetings. Then if you need to grab a gift for your like outdoorsy friends housewarming party this weekend, we've got all these cards and like gifts. The main feature of this space is a guided cider tasting experience. Okay. And so we call the staff here sommeliers. So it's like a cider expert, fun. Right?
I love that.
My big pitch for cider is that it is as approachable as beer, but as nuanced as wine. Mm-hmm. And people don't always totally understand what I mean by that. But if you think about the places when you can drink cider, like a brew pub, at a backyard barbecue, at the top of a mountain after a hike, at a sporting event, sort of casual environments where you might, other people might grab a beer. But also there are single varietal, esoteric, very fine ciders that come from the whole world. And you can travel for cider. It's, England, France, Spain. They have a very robust and long cider history and culture. And that is like a fine wine. You can have it at a Michelin star restaurant and a food pairing and any of these things. And I think people just don't know that much about cider. And so like a real foundation and core piece of this space was to sort of introduce people to cider and say, there's a cider for everyone. We also have non-alcoholic cider. But really like there's a cider for everyone. There's a cider for every occasion. So about 2 years ago, we decided to open the space. In the back, we've got our whole production facility. Yeah. And so it's allowed us to 5 times our production capacity from next door. That's amazing. So that was like pretty cool in the space right next door. Yes. It's been really interesting to watch the evolution of both the brand from a, growth perspective, selling it in stores and things like that, but more importantly, like our community here. Yes. And, the Adventure Lodge and General Store is what the new space is called. And it really is a testament to if you build it, they will come.
All this space has been so curated, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a while, about how it's been so community led, even the artists that you worked with and the community partners that you have. So that's very apparent here. But for now, let's talk about your team. So Bivouac itself is a women-led team, and you describe them as a team of adventurers, creatives, and go-getters who care about challenging the status quo and making a positive impact. So what does that look like for your team in real life? And I know you have a couple guys on your team as well, but you have a big passion for supporting women-owned businesses as well. I was reading on your menu that the coffee beans that you source are from women-owned businesses. The tea that you source for matchas are from women-owned businesses. You have women artists that you feature all across your restaurant and space. So tell us about that. How does that look for each of your team members?
I was a women's studies minor in college, and I was the president of the Feminist Forum in law school. And I've always worked in women's rights and sort of feminist causes. And I always say, like, it doesn't really matter what I'd be doing. I would make it a feminist thing. So I'm like, cider company, we're now a feminist cider company, right? Actually, when we were just coming out of COVID, I had a woman cider maker. I was, sort of taking over the company and leading the ship. And as we were growing and as we were selling, I realized how rare it was in this, first of all, entrepreneurship generally, but in this craft beverage space, like there were almost no women-owned and women-made products. It's very rare. It's a little bit better now, and like things have changed a bit over the years. But like at the time, it was seriously notable to have a women-led company, and so we sort of came out with a branding campaign, Women Powered, and that doesn't mean that we only hire women, and it doesn't mean that we only market to women or that we think only women should be, drinking our cider. The whole mission of the company is that we champion, I'll say the underdog, right? And from my perspective, I think cider is the underdog. I think not a ton of people know about cider. It gets left out of the conversation a lot of times. And it's like this wonderful, amazing beverage that's just really been overlooked for a lot of years. And I think the same thing happens with whether it be women or, any type of disadvantaged group who has been overlooked or who is underrepresented in entrepreneurship or whatever industry that you're in. And so for me, it's just like really cool to be able to cultivate a diverse team and have a really cool, diverse community who appreciates championing people who may have been overlooked in other settings. And so for me, that's like why, women powered is the thing. It was funny when we were kind of building the brand, I had a friend's husband ask me like, yeah, your brand seems cool, but like, I'm confused. Are you like women powered or feminist? Or are you like outdoor, nature inspired? Like what's the vibe? And that's exactly what I said. And it was like, I don't find them to be mutually exclusive. Yeah. Like you can be both. And I think so many women would react that way. Like that's both. Like what's the problem, but to him thinking about branding, it was like, oh, if you say women led or women powered, or you highlight that, then like you cannot possibly be talking to men and women with your product. And I was like, wow, this is so interesting because the actual customers that we cultivate don't think that at all. Yeah. The people that are naturally attracted to our brand are super diverse. And in fact, like we're kind of rugged outdoor camping brand, totally. Right? And so like we have some pretty manly men that are super into our brand. But it's an interesting perspective that people believe that you cannot both be feminist and outdoorsy or, have a woman-owned company where men also drink our alcohol. You know what I mean? Exactly. But it's really interesting when you hear people's perspectives from the outside. So
you're educating on multiple topics of like, what is cider? But also, you can be an adventurer that's also a feminist at the same time.
Absolutely.
You work with some great local businesses. So why do you think it's important for businesses to work together with community partners and have those relationships?
I feel very strongly about this. I think San Diego has always prioritized supporting local, but I think the support was a lot stronger pre-COVID. Okay. Post-COVID, I've seen like a little bit of a turn away from this, or people not focusing on it as much. And I think as costs rise and as, San Diego is a pretty expensive place, and as California products are expensive, and, doing the right thing or the community thing or the environmental thing, like sometimes isn't always the most profitable thing. But I just feel so strongly, and I really encourage any other businesses that are in the community to think about the local impact of a dollar. When we work with local companies, when we hire, staff from within the neighborhood, when we source products or collaborate with other businesses in the community, and more importantly for me, like we produce cider, and I'd love for all the other bars and restaurants to buy our cider rather than a cider from somewhere else.
Very true.
And it is because the impact of that economic spend is like really hyper local, right? Like, so if you're a bar or restaurant and you buy my cider, I then can hire another employee. That employee makes money, and then they go to your bar and restaurant and they spend money. And it's just like the cycle of money. And instead of sending it out of San Diego, you're keeping it here. If you invest in your community, invest in the people in your community, and, build with nice materials and do things that will last, I'm probably not making as much money as other people. I'm probably not making as much money as I should, but I believe in what I'm doing, and I believe like the right people are attracted to it. And so like the people that we cultivate end up being like a really great group of people,
You're right. There is a cyclical way in which if you help your team helps the community helps you. It's like a cycle. And that's a really interesting way to think about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another way I heard of you too, I forgot to mention this earlier, is Sarah Allen, who owns Art Deco Studios.
She was here last week.
Yeah. And
doing an event.
Yep. And so you're just proving the ways in which you work with locals and people who have a creative sense. Totally. And I just love that because you're doing good work for the community.
Thank you. Yeah, I always say like I have no talent, but I really love people that have talent. And so I love artists, I love musicians, and I wanted to build a space that would attract those artists and musicians and creatives to come here. And like I always say like, I want somebody to write their novel here or like a screenplay or whatever. And all the time I'll walk through and I'm like, oh, what are you doing? They're like, I'm writing a book here. And I'm like, yes, this is like my dream, you know? And we've had multiple book launches here. We do So Far Sounds. If you've heard of that, it's like an underground music pop-up. And we've had art
baby
shows.
showers here.
Lots of baby showers.
Yeah.
We're like baby shower city.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through the process of how your cider is made? From sourcing the fruit to what ends up in someone's glass. Can you kind of talk about that? Because another thing that I heard you say on social media is that cider is it's a really nice way to have a light drink. I think when I think of beer and wine, it's like heavier, especially with a stout. It's really heavy and it's good for people with gluten intolerances, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So can you kind of talk about how the process of it being made and then how it's tailored for different people?
Absolutely. What I'm drinking here is San Diego Jam. This is our most popular cider, and it's delicious and beautiful color. Cider is naturally gluten-free.
Okay.
And I think that, from a health perspective and people that have actual gluten intolerances, they've been looking for something to drink. They want to enjoy a drink, at a backyard barbecue or at a bar or whatever. And they either don't want to drink beer or they can't drink beer. But if you don't drink beer, most often you're like, okay, I'll have a wine.
Yeah.
But wine is often 12 to 14% alcohol. And so
a lot.
Yeah. And you can't, like, if you go out with your friends and they're having a few beers, you have a few wines, you're drunk. And like, you don't always want to get drunk, in the middle of the day.
And
or
another
whatever.
one you said too is seltzer. A lot of people think it's just water and sugar fermented. So that's
right.
the difference between seltzer and cider too.
Yeah. Seltzer is like a reasonable beer alternative, but it's not interesting or complex, and it doesn't have any agricultural product.
Leaves a weird taste
water.
in your mouth.
Yeah, I don't love it. But, and so really, I think there is a true hole in the market that cider fills, but people just don't know about it. So our ciders are about 6% alcohol.
Okay.
And that's a lot of ciders in that range, 5-6% alcohol. So it's, comparable to beer. And so if you go out in the afternoon and, your husband grabs a beer and you grab a cider, you're at least on like the same pace, right? Cider also pairs very well with food. And, it's light and it tastes great and it's not bloating and there's all sorts of fun flavors. I've coined this term for our cider. I think we're putting out ciders that are very unique and that are unlike a lot of other ciders people have tried. So I call this SoCal cider. So that which you have is OMG. So that's orange, mango, guava. It's sort of our answer to POG. Cheers, by the way.
Cheers. I'm going to take a sip because might as well.
So San Diego Jam is mixed berry. So this is apple, blueberry, blackberry, and blackcurrant. And OMG is a pear base. And it's pear, orange, mango, and guava. These ciders are what I describe as SoCal ciders. So I think this is Bivouac's unique approach to cider, which is it is made from either apples or pears. It's gluten-free. It's light and dry and flavorful and, crisp and refreshing. And
I'm tasting the orange now, kind of on the back of my tongue. That's really
that one's like a tropical kind of flavor. But whether you like dry things or you like sweet things, we've got something for everyone, kind of all on the range. Nothing that we make is too sweet. Even our sweeter ones are nice and crisp and great for like a hot day. So at its baseline, cider making is more like making wine than it is beer. So beer has a hot side. Beer, you take grain and you cook it with water and you extract sugar from it and then you ferment that cooked grain that you've extracted the sugar from. With wine, it is just grape juice and yeast. With cider, it is apple juice and yeast. Or pear. So if it's all pear, it's called perry. And if it's all apple, it's called cider. And if it's pear and apple mixed together, it's called pear cider. So everything we make at Bivouac is either apple or pear or a combination of those two. And then we often blend with other fruit juice. Basically, with fermentation of fruit, you take juice and you take yeast and you combine them. And in a few weeks, you've got alcohol. So it's from a scientific perspective, pretty easy. You could make it at home if you went and got some apple juice and honestly left it on your counter for a few weeks. In a few weeks, you would have alcohol because yeast is naturally occurring everywhere. And sugar is naturally occurring in juice. And so yeast gets with sugar. The yeast eats the sugar, produces alcohol and CO2 bubbles. And yeah, there you got alcohol. So in our process, we actually import apple juice from the UK.
I saw an interview with a woman that I'm sure is your apple farmer.
Correct.
Yeah, that was so interesting.
It was also interesting. There's a woman-led farm collective. That was really cool. But yeah, we went out to England and we went on this like cider pilgrimage, and we went and rode tractors on the farms where they grow our apples, and like, you know, ate apples off the tree, and really like connected with the farm collective out there. And they're small local farmers who are growing these like beautiful products. And England is actually one of the most sustainable places in the world to grow apples because it's a perfect climate for it, and it rains, and you know,
it looked very foggy that day when you guys were there.
And pretty much all the time, right? Yeah. And so it's a perfect climate for growing apples, and they grow an abundance of apples. And so in the United States, most people, or many people, get their apples from Washington State. And Washington State produces a ton of apples. But in the U.S., post-Prohibition, they cut down a lot of the cider apple trees, and they started planting mostly eating apples. And so if you think of like Gala apples, Honeycrisp, you know, Red Delicious, apples that you buy at the grocery store. Those are great for eating, but they're not as good for making cider. So cider making apples have tannins, acid, and a little bit more complex structure to them that sometimes if you eat them, they don't taste good. But if you make them into cider, they taste amazing. And so Europe grows a ton of cider apples, and the U.S. does not grow a ton of cider apples. So we connected with this farm collective in the U.K. They grow this beautiful apple called a Dabinet, and it is widely regarded as the finest cider apple in the world because it really produces a balanced cider with sugar, acid, and tannins. So because it's very far away, we import juice. We don't get like the actual apple and press it. That would be a lot of apples, a lot of apples. So we bring in the juice. We also get some fruit from Washington State. Our pears are coming from Washington State. So in every glass of Bivouac's apple cider, you have the Dabinet apple. And I always say you're tasting a piece of cider history because it is this apple that was like born in Somerset in England and like really cultivated to make this amazing cider. So that's like really cool, and I think is what sets our cider apart from many ciders that people have in the US. And when you taste it, it gives, you know, tannins and acid. It gives you mouthfeel. It gives you complexity. It, to me, kind of tastes expensive. And it holds up really well against food. And, you know, there's just a lot to it rather than like if you're drinking, you know, nothing against Angry Orchard, but I think that's like the cider that a lot of people have had. And it's a little bit sweet and it's not too tannic. And so it's just kind of drinking like apple Kool-Aid, right? And so I think people have that in their mind that like cider is sweet, but cider is not inherently sweet. When you ferment things, they get all the way dry. And it's in fact what you do to it afterwards that would, you know, add back sugar. So like this San Diego jam, we take our apple juice, we ferment it, takes 2 to 3 weeks, then it's alcohol. And then we blend it with blueberry, blackberry, and blackcurrant juice. And that's what creates this product.
And the beautiful color as well.
Beautiful color. And it's also, I mean, I always hesitate to call alcohol healthy necessarily because it is alcohol. However, like there are a lot of benefits to fermentation. And there's a lot of benefits to fruit. And so this is truly like a lot of antioxidants, a lot of vitamins. And so, you know, if you are choosing to drink an alcohol, like our whole brand at Bivouac and like the customers that we've cultivated are sort of healthy, outdoor, active adventure lifestyle people who they like to eat and drink. They don't abstain from everything, but when they do make choices, they want those choices to be, you know, worth it and taste really good, be, you know, healthy, have some health benefits to them, and, you know, be high quality ingredients. So I know you're going to kind of like walk around and take a tour, but I wanted to tell you just a little bit about the space, you know, as you're walking through. So the interior of the space was designed like a glamping yurt.
Okay.
And so next door, we've kind of got the climbing rope, and that's like our rugged adventurer side. And this side, I wanted to be like the same theme, but a little bit classier. And I was like, what's fancy camping? I'm like, glamping. And where would you go glamping? In a yurt.
Yep.
And so we put the skylight and we built the round wall.
Yes. Okay. That totally makes sense now.
Yeah. And so, and you'll see the like yurt wall. My dad built out the wood thing that like is the yurt wall. And the concept for me was like having all of these unique and separate concepts, like the cafe and the store and everything, but that they all come together in one communal space. And energetically, like that's kind of like the special thing of a yurt is like that round space and the, sun and moon coming in from the outside. And honestly, when you walk into this space, like the energy is so magical. Yes. And when people come to an event here, like it's just, there's something about being in a round space that really feels special, gets you talking to a wide variety of people. And
you can't hide in a corner in a spherical space.
Honestly, that's exactly it, right? And everything's about that community and coming together in the middle. And then if you look at the front of the space, we painted it 2 different colors, and it kind of evokes that like European storefront, like walkability. Because I felt like in San Diego, we really don't have that like urban density and walkability. And I was like, it'd be really cool if it looked like a bunch of stores in a row. And then we have the Parisian Sidewalk Cafe. And that's the other thing that I thought we were really missing here in San Diego. Like if you look at any great city in the world, Rome, Paris, London, Mexico City, they have a cafe culture. Mm-hmm. And it's like people come to sit, enjoy their beverage, look at their friends in their face, meet up with their family, and like take a pause from their day and like create this special moment over their breakfast or their, whatever it is that they're doing. And also people watching, in North Park, we have like all these fun, funky, diverse people, and there's just not a ton of people watching. So we built this beautiful outdoor seating cafe, and you can kind of sit and watch all the tattoos walk by and purple hair and all the things. And then when you come into the space, there's the cafe and coffee shop. We've sourced coffee beans from women-owned farms in Chiapas, Mexico, as you mentioned. And the store, we have a lot of local, handmade, curated kind of gifts and things like that. And then the cider tasting bar, we've got beer, wine, cider, cocktails, all-day cafe, and non-alcoholic. And so, like you said, there's sort of something for everyone, and you can kind of come into the space and just like enjoy whatever it is that you're looking for. And then if you go down kind of the hallway to the bathrooms, there's a canyon. Did you walk through it?
That place was so cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we built out, I found another local woman artist and built out, because we have this big wide hallway, and I was like, man, it'd be really cool if it looks like Antelope Canyon in Arizona. Yes. So she built out this like really cool canyon. And then did you peek in the bathrooms?
Not yet.
Yeah, all 3 bathrooms are really cool.
Okay.
And they're all different.
I'll have to go in each one of them.
You'll have to go, yeah, exactly. You're going to have to drink a lot of cider, so you have to go into the bathroom. And then if you go past the bathrooms, there's a hole in the wall, and there's a beautiful mural of Arches National Park. Wow. And it was painted by another local woman artist. And then there's a hole in the wall, and you look through it and you can see our whole production facility. There's this cool concept in nature, and I think you'll find it a lot of wineries where you'll like come to an opening in the rocks, and you look through, and it's this vast landscape. Yes. And I was like, it'd be so cool if we had this hole in the wall and this vast landscape and this production facility.
That's so cool.
And like I have my contractor, and I was like, okay, I need a hole in the wall. And he was like, no. And I was like, no, it's like a key part of this design. Like I need you to just like drill a hole right here so we can look through it. And he thought I was crazy, but.
Lara, thank you so much for taking the time to explain how cider is made, how Bivouac came to be, who you are, and the people that you want to support in your community. You've been truly inspiring to me, and now I know so much more about cider than I didn't know before.
That's our whole mission here.
Yes, mission accomplished with me anyways. And I hope for everyone else that you've learned something new today. Make sure that you stop by Bivouac the next time that you're in North Park, because chances are there's going to be something that is for you, even if it's just to meet your dog.
Yeah, that's true. You do need to meet Cooper. But yeah, we really would love to have you in, and especially do our guided cider tasting experience. And, we'll just teach you a little bit more about cider and the history and the culture around it, and come on in and be a part of our community.
Today's conversation with Lara is such a powerful reminder that meaningful work doesn't always follow a straight path. Sometimes it looks like wandering off the trail, taking an unexpected turn, and realizing that every chapter can become part of the story that you're meant to create. Bivouac Ciderworks is more than a place to grab a drink or a meal. It's a reminder to gather, explore, and build spaces where people feel invited into something bigger than themselves. So if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and tune in next time as we continue to explore the lives of remarkable women. Until then, you're worth far more than rubies. Set about your work vigorously with arms strong for your tasks. Open your arms to the poor and extend your hands to the needy. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised.